It has just been agreed between Baghdad and Erbil with U.S. encouragement to resume oil exports from Kirkuk. Will that help the Kirkuk, or they're not going to benefit so much?
Well, Kirkuk would only benefit from anything with regard to oil if it had some say who works, which company works in Kirkuk, and what that company does for the local by employing them, by building schools, because when Kirkuk actually, oil has been a curse on Kirkuk since it was founded in 1927. 40% of Kirkuk's land is forbidden to be used by anybody for anything except for the oil company because it's forbidden. But the people of Kirkuk don't get anything from it. In 2011, we started to get $1 for every barrel that was produced. And we got that in 2012 and 2013. Then since then, Kirkuk did not receive a penny from Baghdad that they were supposed to do. Same goes for Basra, for other places. And that's why you saw all the demonstrations in Basra, which led to the collapse of Abadi and his government, because Abadi really had everything on a silver platter with 200% U.S. administration support for him to become prime minister again, and yet he lost it. Why? Because they didn't pay attention to people's need: electricity, water, school, health.
So you're saying that as regards Kirkuk, it's important for the local people to receive some amount of revenue and to have a say in how the oil company operates. And
of course. And then, this 50 to 100,000 barrels that has been reported is really about 20% of what Kirkuk can produce. And Iraqi government, in a sense, has been really derelict in not allowing this oil to be exported because the pipelines were built by the Kurdistan region. And of course, for the oil to go through those pipelines, they have to pay $2 for every barrel that goes through. And for not paying, they preferred not to pay the Kurdistan regional government, which really is not the one that gets the money. It's Rosneft, because they have leased those pipelines. They lost about $8 billion since October of last year until now for not exporting that oil, which they could have, because they had to pay $270 million for the pipeline.
So the Baghdad government preferred not to export oil out of which it could make $8 billion because it would have to pay
$270 million
to the KRG or to
Rosneft. Well, it would have gone. It would have gone to Rosneft because they have lease power on the pipelines.
Do you expect now with the new prime minister? I mean, that's a very vindictive approach towards the Kurdistan region. With a new prime minister, do you think that attitude in Baghdad is going to change towards the Kurdistan region? It will become friendlier, or the vindictiveness will continue?
Well, like I said, the prime minister, Mr. Abdul Mahdi, who I know personally and is a friend, I believe he wants to do good things. Whether he has the power to do it or not, I don't know. You could just see from the formation of the government, there's a lot of pressure on him. He was forced to withdraw some names that he was going to submit in the new government. And even now, 6 to 8 ministries remain vacant because of disagreement, and they are not allowing him to proceed with the candidates that he thinks he should have.
And so are you concerned about Iranian influence in Baghdad now, either directly in the government or through the Hashd al-Shabi?
Iran, whatever Iran is doing in Iraq, is by the invitation of the Iraqi government. And yes, they have a lot of influence in everything.
Okay. How do you evaluate the elections that were just held in the Kurdistan region, and in particular the strong showing for the KDP?
I'm glad you asked that question. Everybody blamed everything on the referendum, especially the anti-KDP forces like the other parties. KDP in the local elections in the Kurdistan region actually made a point of talking about the referendum, how important was the referendum, how important and successful was the referendum, and how the referendum represented the will of the Kurdish people about what they want. And people voted for them. Contrary to the other parties who campaigned blaming all the problems of Kurdistan on the referendum, and they all failed to get what they wanted.
So the strong showing for the KDP in the Kurdistan region elections suggests a continuing support for independence among the people of the Kurdistan region, is what you're telling us?
Yes, and your channel, Kurdistan 24, carried most of those big gatherings during the elections, and President Barzani, the Prime Minister, and others. The most important thing they were talking about is KDP's work and leadership during the referendum, and also Kurdish aspiration for independence.
Well, I hope Washington will listen this time. I have the feeling, because I cover the State Department, that Mike Pompeo and John Bolton are more sympathetic to Kurdish aspirations than their predecessors, but they were only appointed to their positions in April. Do you think that if they were in charge in October of 2017, the U.S. might have made different decisions, might not have let Iraq attack Kirkuk?
I think and I'm not excusing U.S. government's position during October 16 of last year. But if it wasn't for the treachery that happened, I think U.S. officials at that time wouldn't have been so emboldened to come out and call the referendum disruptive, including Secretary Tillerson and his representatives in Iraq. I think that was the main reason.
That was the main reason. It's one naturally.
But those representatives actually fed that division, encouraged that division, and worked on having that division.
I can believe that. I see that Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Iraq and Iran, Andrew Peake, was in Iraq. It was in Erbil. And it seems that U.S. policy is shifting, perhaps that other people now who are in charge of U.S. policy are being marginalized. Do you have a perception that U.S. policy is shifting in any way that is more favorable toward Erbil?
Well, immediately after the referendum, actually, they reached out to the Kurdistan regional government and Prime Minister Nishivan Barzani, who, by the way, I think managed that situation and the aftermath of everything related to the referendum really magnificently. I think he deserves a lot of credit for how he managed that situation. But not just the U.S., President Macron of France, Chancellor Merkel of Germany, and many others actually started to reaching out because they realized the only stable region in Iraq, the only region that stays pro-West, believes in liberal democracy, despite all the whatever shortcomings are there, is in Kurdistan. If you abandon Kurdistan, if you lose Iraq, do you want to lose all of Iraq, or at least save the part that shows some promise and has shown some promise?
That's a good question. Do you think that the United States regrets not having stopped Iraq from attacking Kirkuk?
I think the United States should regret staying silent and saying we don't take sides. And United States should have regret for not preventing the attack on Afrin.
Thank you very much, Governor Karim. It's a pleasure talking with you.
Nice to be with you.